Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan. Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest buskeg hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
You know, for as discombobulated as we were yesterday coming out of the holiday break, today, clarity. It is Friday. It is Friday in the sports bar. We've got a great weekend ahead of us. Let's get there.
And I'm awake right now. Why? I don't know if you were a Letterman or a Leno guy, Danger, but I was more of a David Letterman guy. One of his recurring bits, but people say he did this on purpose, was, hey, the theater here, it's freezing cold. And he did that just to kind of keep the audience awake.
Yeah.
What is going on with our building here?
When was the last time you went to Vegas, baby? You go to Vegas, baby, and they keep the air on in those casinos. They don't show you any clocks. They want you up, and they want you on.
Yes. So apparently somebody upstairs here, or the new landlord or somebody's like, hey, boys, wake up here.
Yeah, this is good. It preps us for a weekend where we're probably going to get some snow. We're going to have to deal with winter.
Yeah.
We've been pretty blessed up to this point. I'm looking forward to tonight. I can't believe this is happening. My nephew Vincent is turning 12 tonight. Big party over at his house. And I can't believe, one, that he's 12. But I'm watching this, watching him develop into a football fan right before my very eyes. And it warms my heart. His dad's a Commanders fan. He took him to a game a couple of years ago, a primetime game against the Giants. He took him to the game on Sunday against the Falcons.
Wow.
The overtime game.
Ooh.
And all I could think to myself is, he's done. He's in. He's indoctrinated. He got to see one of the best games of the year in prime time with his team and his quarterback making play. Like, he's going to be a Commanders fan for life. And it warms my heart to watch it. So, we're ready for this party tonight. But before we, kind of go back to hibernation this weekend with lots of snow coming down, but lots of action to talk about and lots of NFL action this weekend as well.
Yeah. On the Commanders, I'm happy for their fan base, Danger.
Yeah.
Like, after years of its management, now they can...
Kind of crazy. They're getting their way, right? They're going to get a stadium at RFK here eventually. Like, what they've been trying to do, for years. Like, that wasn't getting done because everybody knew that Snyder's a bad guy. We're not doing business with him. All of a sudden now things get done the right way, and it looks like there's a pathway for them to kind of move forward as a franchise.
Yeah, and... Look, this isn't an important game for the Bills. We already know they're the 2 seed, but it's not to say it's not interesting, though. If you listen to our show, you're probably interested in what's going to happen, and I think there's a little tell here as far as what the Bills may be doing with their roster next year.
Sure. We got a great show lined up for you this afternoon. We'll get into all of the Bills' talk here as we prepare for their trip to New England coming up on Sunday afternoon. Joining us later this afternoon, right around 4:25, super agent Lee Steinberg stops by the sports bar again.
Love having Lee on, and by the time we get back on Monday, oh gosh, there's going to be moves. You'll hear moves probably in your Sunday morning shows, people reporting who's going to be out following the action. And it's a busy Monday in the NFL, and not for all fun reasons. Coaches are going to get let go. They're going to get fired. GMs might get fired. What's it like going behind the scenes? Lee Steinberg has worked both sides here, and I'm just curious, do players have leverage in this sort of thing? Danger?
I wonder, when you're a super agent like Steinberg is, do you look forward to working with organizations that are dysfunctional, or do you have any say? It's really, trying to get the best deal for your client, but just hearing the news today about everything that's gone on with the Jets. The Jets are in full-blown interview mode, and we're hearing all about it. Vrabel interviewed today. It was Ron Rivera speaking to the Commanders. He interviewed.
But, right. But this is what I want to ask Steinberg. They probably know who they want to hire. To me, this is all window dressing, and we're going to put out the tweet that we talked to Ron Rivera, and we talked to so-and-so. And most of these teams probably have an idea. And if you don't believe me, why didn't Bill Belichick wait around here? Because he knew nobody wanted him.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's something we'll dive into. We'll talk a little Black Monday with Lee Steinberg, who joins us at 4:25, and we'll catch up with a guy we haven't talked to since. I just realized this. We haven't really talked to Josh Reed from WIVB since what, training camp?
I know. I feel bad. We've been busy.
Josh Reed.
Yeah, it's like an old friend we haven't talked to in a little bit. So we'll catch up with Josh Reed, and he's heading out to Foxborough as he does for all the games on the road. So we'll talk to Josh about some of these things concerning the Buffalo Bills. It's going to feel different in New England on Sunday, but then again, they're treating it differently too. So we'll talk to Josh Reed coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is open for you this afternoon. You can pull up a stool and join us in the sports bar anytime. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Check out award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub at 135 West Commercial Street in goodsmokebbq.com.
Delicious stuff, yeah. The Bills move today. They promoted Mike White. This wasn't just one of those elevations danger. He's on the active 53. So to make room, the Bills releasing Nick Morrow, a linebacker who you may not even notice the Bills brought back here. So Sean McDermott today, when talking with Sal Capaccio, mentioned, there's a good chance Mike White, you will see him coming up on Sunday.
Mike's done a great job. Hopefully he'll have a chance to play Sunday. And he, like the others, has worked extremely hard, been a great addition to our team, and a true class act. He's done a good job. He really has. You're talking about a guy that wasn't here through spring training camp, preseason, and whatnot. So to watch the personalities in that room come together, just support one another, and that's also part of the role of being a backup is supporting the head guy, in this case Josh, and it's been fun watching that room and the dynamic in that room unfold through the season.
So there's something that McDermott didn't mention here, and wouldn't expect him to mention it here, but it's funny. We always joke that in the NFL, it's not always what you know, but it's who you know. And Dan Leberfeld's a friend of the show. We've had him on a bunch of times from Jets Confidential. So whenever we want to hear about what's going on with the Jets, Leberfeld's our guy. We trust a guy that's been covering the team as long as he has, and we know that he won't sugarcoat it. And he'll tell us straight up what's going on. And he's been asking questions about Mike White to us here in Buffalo. Hey, how is Mike White? What's up with Mike White? Because Mike White, when he was with the Jets, you remember, Matt Milano snatched his soul, right? We'll all remember that hit from a couple of seasons ago where it's like, oh, my God, Milano just killed Mike White. But Mike White played some decent football for the Jets when he was there. And it didn't end well for him in his time in New York. He ended up down in Miami and now with Buffalo. And we had the chance to get together with Leberfeld after the Jets game and we were just kind of chewing the fat about Mike White. I think he said some interesting things, but the most interesting thing was what led to him coming to Buffalo. There's a relationship there between Mike White's family and Joe Brady's family. I guess the two families kind of lived near each other, grew up near each other, so there's a familiarity there and a relationship there. And that certainly helps if you're fighting to get back on an NFL roster, which Mike White did today with the elevation from the practice squad.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering because Mitchell Trubisky is under contract next year with the Bills. It was a 2-year deal, okay? But for Trubisky, it's a cap hit of $3.25 million. It would be a dead cap of $750,000 if you moved on from Mitchell Trubisky. So what's the difference there? It probably washes out. I don't think they're going to get Mike White there for the league minimum, but maybe they did. Maybe they offered to keep him around. I always see, connect dots here. Why would the Bills make this move? Okay, who's his agent? Chase Callahan is the agent. All right, I've never heard of him, but he's got some pretty high-profile clients. He's got Jared Goff as a client. He's got Jack Campbell, who we really love from the Lions. I don't think there's really any kind of connection other than he also has Dalton Kincaid. So, he's already somebody that the Bills have been in contact with. So, it's just something that makes Sunday just a little more interesting for me when Mike White you hear McDermott there. Okay, yes, he is going to play in the second half, and you would figure, they want to see, this is his Super Bowl here. Is he going to be playing on this team next year?
Right, and when you have 18 games on the NFL schedule and a lot of meaningless games here in week 18, when you have 18 weeks, I should say, you're going to see more of this in the final week of the season. You're going to see more teams kind of resting players. You're going to see more backups and more players looking to forward their future. So a great opportunity for guys like Mike White. We spent plenty of time talking about Joe Andreessen, and his opportunity here as he gets a chance to get some playing time, the second half of the Jets game, and you would assume majority of the game here against the Patriots coming up on Sunday. Guys that are going to get these reps that add value to their future with the team that they want to play for.
Yeah, the only guy that has been ruled out, Terrell Bernard, with that quad injury. Curtis Samuel's questionable. Everybody else could play theoretically, which I don't know how many of these guys that are nicked up we'll see, but we'll see.
I've got a minute 15 of Sean McDermott talking about the New England Patriots and Drake May. I know we normally do McDermott McLies on a Wednesday, Gino, but
it's a weird week, Danger.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Ooh. How many McLies in a minute 15 on the Patriots? 7.
Okay. I was leaning 7. 7 was the number I was going to bring up.
Are you going to go over or under 7?
I'm going over. This is Sean McDermott.
Well, I think they're doing a good job. They're somewhat in, I'll call it, a transition year, and those years are difficult. A lot of challenges. You're trying to get things figured out, who you are, what you have, what you don't have, what you need for the future. And I think Coach Mayo has done a really good job of, it seems like, steadying the ship. And it's not easy, of course, when you replace a Hall of Famer like Coach Belichick and what he's been able to accomplish. Being the next guy in is not easy. And so I think they've done a good job. It appears they have a good quarterback for their future, and been very impressed with some of the games that they've played overall this season.
Yeah, and on the quarterback, Drake May, he impressed me a couple of weeks ago. What do you see from the young quarterback and his growth over the film that you've watched from him, maybe through the second half of the year?
He's got size. He's got arm talent, accurate, seems to understand, what the defense are that are being thrown at him, which happens quite frequently to a young quarterback. A lot of coordinators try and put a lot of defenses or multiple looks in front of a young quarterback, and I think he knows where to go with the ball, which is sometimes, quite a bit of the battle when you're young and new in the league here.
11.
Nice.
11. That's
Nice.
the way to start 2025.
Nice.
I would have said there should have been double or triple points for Gerard Mayo's doing a good job. What? What? This might be Gerard Mayo's last game. What are you talking about?
The entirety of Gillette is chanting for the guy to be fired. He's doing a great job. Keep it up, Coach. Love it.
Yeah, there should be some gallows humor. I know you lean more Philadelphia fan. I kind of appreciate Boston fan in this regard.
Boston fans so spoiled.
They are, but
So spoiled.
Danger. It's not going to be pretty. I'm going to put it that way. It's going to, yeah. And people might end up leaving early. So
there you go. That was Sean McDermott on with Sal Capaccio, GR, earlier today, heaping praise on the Patriots and on Drake May. And I guess if you're Drake May, I start to think about okay, we've seen a lot of him. I don't know that I'd say we've seen enough of him to know what he could be for this franchise. But there are some encouraging signs there with Drake May, I believe. I think this year his ability to improvise has been great. I think when he does need to make plays with his feet, he's been able to do that. I think there are other elements of his game that if he works at it, you could see marked improvement year over year. The thing that is out of his control is, well, at least I would imagine it's out of his control, is who's coaching and who's he going to be surrounding himself with when he's with the Patriots? Who are the Patriots going to surround Drake May with? Because if Drake May continues to be surrounded by incompetent coaches, then Drake May's ceiling is Detroit Matthew Stafford. That's his ceiling. I think, a good quarterback who can make a lot of plays but won't win you a lot of games because there's incompetent coaching around him. And it's frustrating because he could be a warrior and he can make all the throws, and he could do everything that you ask him to do as a quarterback, but there's a lack of talent, and there's certainly a lack of coaching around him. I mean, you think about Stafford's time in Detroit, it was just one losing season after another losing season, but there was no question, hey, Matt Stafford's a pretty good quarterback. Sure enough, he leaves Detroit, gets a Super Bowl. I think that's the ceiling for Drake May in New England. Kind of looking into the crystal ball and thinking, okay, what does New England look like in the future as far as whether or not they keep Gerard Mayo, what they do with the offensive coordinator, who's there, who's he surrounding himself with in New England.
Well, if it's Mike Vrabel, and we expect that might be the pick, right? If they move on from Vrabel, I mean, from Mayo, I should say. McDaniels as an offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, dare I say. There are going to be some options there that could provide a better direction. And look, I like Alex Van Pelt, former Buffalo Bill, but is Alex Van Pelt really the guy to develop a quarterback?
I don't know if I would say yes to that. And speaking of Vrabel, yes, he did interview with the Jets today. His contract as a consultant with the Cleveland Browns expired this week. So he's looking for his next head coaching job, and he gets a head start as the season isn't even over yet. Ron Rivera interviewed for the head coaching position with the Jets as well. They have a couple of GMs that have gone and interviewed, whether you're talking about former Falcons GM Thomas Dimitroff, former Titans GM John Robinson. Do you get a reuniting of Robinson and Vrabel, except now with the Jets? And I thought ESPN's Louis Riddick was interesting as well, interviewing for that GM role. I just wonder if the organization is treating this hire as two separate hires or one hire. And I, for the life of me, don't understand why more teams don't just follow the template that you saw the Buffalo Bills follow. You hire the head coach, and you let the head coach essentially handpick the GM that you know they're going to work well with.
I would like to go back in time, because was that the plan, or was it just kind of exposed that, wait a second, we really can't continue on with Doug Whaley? In other words, McDermott comes in, Doug Whaley's still the GM. They worked together from January to the draft. There was a weird time there at the beginning of McDermott, how that all went down. It was almost by accident, Danger.
I almost want to believe, and we may never know the true answer to this, but I feel like it went so badly for Whaley at the end of that season with the Rex firing and the press conference, and it really made him look as if he was odd man out already, that he was just detached and didn't know what was going on with the team that he was the GM for, that it almost felt like it was a condition. Like Sean McDermott said, hey, I'm taking the job, but I can't have him as my GM. If I'm taking the job, I need to pick my guy, and that's my guy. Can we live with that? And the 6-month period there where you're talking about Whaley and McDermott, it was basically a formality. It's like, okay, we know what's going to happen. You're with us through the draft, but after that, you're gone. And I guess that would make sense, because McDermott coming in without a GM or not being able to get Brandon Beane in time for the draft, Whaley at minimum knew, hey, we've done all this draft prep already. Here's what we have. You can look at what we have, make an informed decision. They end up taking Trey White in the first round.
I do like the head coach being hired and then let me pick my guy, but there is that balance because you're in it together sort of deal. If the Jets hire separately, they're not really learning anything. They just hire two big names and two big egos, and eventually they'll clash. Mm-hmm. If you hire Louis Riddick and Mike Vrabel together, they'll say all the nice things. They might even have a good draft out of the gate. But how's that going to work in the end? You either hire Riddick and then he makes the choice, or vice versa.
I'm trying to remember how it ended for Robinson in Tennessee.
It had something to do with, I remember for some reason, it was right around the Eagles game. That that all kind of cropped up.
So was it the trade of A.J. Brown that led to him being...
That led to him going because probably management was upset.
And I'm trying to remember, was Robinson on the clock when they selected Malik Willis? Or was that his successor who drafted the quarterback that it was very clear Mike Vrabel did not want to work with?
That was the successor. So that was the following year. The last pick for Robinson was, I'm trading A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
And who was it? Was it Burks? It was some receiver.
Traylon Burks, yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't work out. And I was like, ooh, that's bad.
I mean, the idea that Robinson and Vrabel, who had success together in Tennessee, the idea of those two reuniting potentially with the Jets, that would make sense if you're a Jets fan. I think if you're a Jets fan, you would probably sign up for that. And would it make me nervous as a Bills fan? I obviously need to see it before I'd say, oh yeah, I'm nervous. And who's the quarterback going to be and all of that stuff. But Vrabel and Robinson, with the history that they have, I think a lot of Jets fans would sign up for that. That would be good news. And that, to your point, I think you're not learning anything if you're the Jets and you just hire two giant names to do their jobs separately without any sort of structure or accountability as to who's reporting to who and who has the final say.
But here's why I think they could fall into that trap. And it was something like when we talked to Dan, and I don't think Dan would be upset of us bringing this on air, right? But he brought up an interesting thing to you and I, that in New York, like the talk radio there, the fan base, they don't go beyond the quarterback.
You just want to talk about the quarterback.
You just talk about the quarterback. And if you have they're not diving into anything the way we do here. There's not even a niche show down there. It's baseball. Baseball is the king in New York City.
Right.
And, football, the Knicks, if they're good, and then hockey way at the bottom.
Nobody talks about the lack of accountability with that team. Nobody talks about when players screw up. There's no ramifications for that. There's no benching. There's no, in fact, he shared a story with us about Robert Saleh, and it's not a story. This is but words that came out of his mouth in a press conference after, who's the lineman, the big meathead that always gets into
Superfly there.
That always gets into it with Dawkins. Jenkins? Mike?
Yeah.
No, not Jenkins. What's his last name? Michael. Maybe it is Michael Jenkins. You know what I'm talking about, the defensive lineman for the Jets. Just notorious for costly penalties. And he had some against the Bills. You didn't see anybody. Remember, he jumped on the pile at the end of the 15-yard penalty, goes to the sideline. Nobody really talks to him about it. Nobody pulls him aside and says, hey, man, come on. And Saleh, when he was still the coach of the Jets, basically in a press conference said, if you knew the guy the way I knew the guy, you would understand why he did what he did. Basically defending the actions of a stupid penalty that costs your team. There's been no accountability there. I think
it's Michael Clemens. Was that
Clemens? That's the guy I'm talking about. Yep. I'm sorry, I said Jenkins.
Yep.
It's Clemens. So, when you have this environment of no accountability and everybody says what they want to say, and there really is no controlling of the messaging, you have to get this right. I mean, if you're the Jets, I don't know why you wouldn't find the head coach and let the head coach pick his GM, guaranteeing that you will have two guys collaborating, working together in as harmonious a way as you can. I know Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane don't agree on everything. That would be impossible. But at least there's a mutual respect.
Well, if they disagree, they're not whispering it to somebody else.
Right.
And trying to win their case through the court of public opinion.
Correct.
No.
Correct.
Yeah, keep it behind closed doors.
So that's what's happening with the Jets. And we mentioned what's going on with the Bills with Mike White. Signed to the active roster. Look to see him Sunday in New England. Nick Morrow, linebacker, released as a corresponding move. Healthy Buffalo Bills team going into New England. Everybody, with the exception of Terrell Bernard, is available. Just a questionable tag for Curtis Samuel, which bodes well for Super Wildcard weekend next weekend in terms of the Bills being healthy at the right time of the year. Let's talk more about the Bills and the Patriots with our buddy Josh Reed. WIVB. We're going to catch up with Josh, man. I feel like last time we talked to him at training camp, we were still trying to learn what this team could be. I think a lot of us, but myself included, believed it might be a little bit of a down year. I was wrong. We're not here. We don't have this opportunity every day to do this because we're right all the time. We have the opportunity to do this every day because we have opinions, but we're not always going to be right. And boy, I was wrong, and I know a lot of people were on this being the year that it ended up being for the Buffalo Bills, and we'll get Josh's take on all of that as well. Josh Reed, WIVB, stopping by the Sports Bar next on The Fan.
FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester. Why settle for the silence of your living room when you can have the thrill of sports talk? Ask your smart speaker to play 95.7 The Fan and turn your home into a sports arena. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills signing quarterback Mike White to the active roster. Good chance we'll see White Sunday in New England, says head coach Sean McDermott.
Right, that's the plan. He'll be suited up, and hopefully we get a chance to get him in the game. And I'm anxious and excited to look at Mike. He's done a phenomenal job with us, and I'm hoping that comes to fruition on Sunday afternoon there.
To make room, linebacker Nick Morrow released from the Bills today. Linebacker Terrell Bernard, he's been ruled out for this game. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel is questionable. We'll talk to Josh Reed, sports director WIVB, about the Bills coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Amerson Springfield tonight. Rochester has won 13 times on the road this season. That is the most in the AHL. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. Sabres, they continue their play out west. They're at Vegas tomorrow night. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Offensive line don't get trophies, right? So for getting selected for the Pro Bowl, it's like a trophy, and I take it with a lot of respect. I don't take it lightly, and I'm honored to push for it every year. And, it just shows that you're consistently doing something well.
Buffalo Bills left tackle Deion Dawkins on his Pro Bowl selection. We found out about that yesterday. He and Josh Allen will be starting for the AFC as we welcome in Josh Reed at WIVB TV in Buffalo. Good with his time to join us in the Sports Bar as the regular season comes to its conclusion on Sunday, Josh. And if I'm racking my brain, I think the last time we had you in the Sports Bar might have even been training camp, and it's been a wild ride. I'm curious as to how this season has gone versus how you thought it was going to go the last time we spoke to you when you were there with us at St. John Fisher.
Yeah, preseason, I was on, a podcast. One of our friends, Sal Capaccio, has one, and I was on it, and he had asked a couple of us to come on and give our predictions. This is before the season, and I said I thought that the over-under in Vegas was 10.5 wins, and I thought they'd get to 11. And that was probably higher than most people figured, and here they are. I mean, far exceeding that even. I think the season's gone about as good as you could have hoped, really. Not only do you win, all of your home games, you go out and you knock off the Chiefs during that, and I think most people thought the Niners would be a little better than they were. Injuries got a hold of them, but this season's gone maybe better than expected. Bobby Babich, that was one of the big questions. How would Bobby Babich do in his first year as defensive coordinator? And of course, Joe Brady, his first full season as the Bills OC. And I think they both did a really nice job. It's been quite an interesting ride. Josh Allen being in the MVP conversation, I don't think comes as a surprise to any of us. But if you go all the way back to St. John Fisher, what was one of the big storylines? We heard it over and over and over was everybody eats. This offense is going to be everybody eats. And here they are with 13 different players catching touchdowns. That ties an NFL record, and with one game left, they have a chance to break it.
So who's your pick to get 14, Josh?
You know what? I'm gonna go Alec Anderson.
Yeah.
And I would go Deion, because I think they would love to do that for Deion, and obviously he's caught touchdowns before. We're just not going to see much of the offensive line, right? The starters aren't going to be on the field. If they are, it's going to be very minimal. Alec Anderson, though, is a guy who, he's fun. The guys love him. He brings a ton of energy. We've seen him. He's been the sixth offensive lineman in their jumbo packages. So I think if they could get Alec Anderson in the end zone, first of all, buckle up, because that could be quite the touchdown celebration from him. He is no stranger to taking his shirt off at random times, including Sabres games. So we could do quite the celebration. But I'm gonna go with Alec Anderson.
Josh, we also heard today that Mike White will be signed, Nick Morrow being released by the team in the corresponding move. I'm curious, how much do you think we'll see of him beyond Mitch Trubisky? Josh getting the start, and what about Mike White long term with the Buffalo Bills? Is this kind of an audition for Mike White to remain in Buffalo, knowing that there's some connections now being formed between Mike and the Bills, a guy who's taken a tour of 3/4 of the AFC East already in his young career?
Yeah, let's start off with the first half of that. I think we'll see. I don't know this. I would guess we'll see Josh Allen maybe turn around and hand the ball off 3 times and give Mitch Trubisky high five as he heads off to the bench and grabs a baseball cap. And 3 might be too many, quite frankly.
Sure.
And then I think Mitch will. My guess is Mitch will run it through the first half, maybe even the first 3/4 of the game, and then I would think then you bring in Mike White to wrap things up with the fourth quarter, maybe even as much as the second half. As far as long-term backup goes for Mike White and kind of getting maybe a little bit of an audition here, I mean, I don't know how much you're going to know from just this game. I think if that's the case, I think you know that from practice and from the last 2 months of being in Buffalo than you would, a throwaway game, week 18. It's not like Mike White's going to drop back and throw the ball 22 times where you can really go, okay. To your point, I think he's got a relationship now with Josh Allen. He's got a relationship with Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator. They know what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are. Going forward, I think his audition was more so the past, I forget when he signed, maybe 2 months ago. I think that was it, and I think Sunday will sway them one way or the other.
Josh Reed, WIVB, our guest here in the Sports Bar. Josh, if we're kind of also going with this theme, things we got wrong on the Buffalo Bills, honestly, I'm going to put my hand in the air. I thought it was a PR stunt, kind of along those lines. This is nice. We're going to give the Buffalo kids some play here in camp, and then you see them in that Steelers preseason game like, okay, maybe there is something with Joe Andreessen. What are your expectations for Buffalo Joe coming up, getting some extensive time here on Sunday?
What a story. I mean, this is like straight out of Hollywood, a movie script. It's been crazy because I'm with you. I kind of thought, okay, this is a fun little story, and eventually, this will get us through some of the longer days at St. John Fisher where we're all kind of going, okay, what's the storyline for today? I thought, this will end up fading into the background, but it hasn't. And he's been a really nice contributor on special teams. And quite frankly, they can't count on Balin Spector. He's never healthy. He is never healthy. He's always banged up. And look, I know he can't do anything about that. I mean, some of it's just tough luck. Well, I mean, Joey Andreessen, you talk about the right player, right place, right time. I mean, he's going to get a chance week 18. Now you're talking about a guy with an actual audition. Like, this guy's got a chance. And once again, he's obviously proven that he can play in this league in some capacity or another, whether it's for the Buffalo Bills next season going forward, which quite frankly I think it will be, or, on another team's, 53-man or practice squad. He's shown that he belongs, especially contributing on special teams. You always need those core special teams guys. And look, if he can prove that he can back up and play sufficiently at linebacker and be a backup guy, come in a pinch, injury, stuff like that, and play special teams. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Sean was asked about Joey Andreessen this week, and he, you could tell there are certain guys, not just Sean. If you're a head coach or position coach, you ask them about certain guys, and just their demeanor changes a little bit. You can tell Sean is happy not only for himself and that the Joe Andreessen thing worked out, but for Joe. I mean, it's such a good story. And you talk about an underdog story. I mean, undrafted free agent, nobody really gave him a shot to get into this point of the season. And, here he is. He's going to get a lot of playing time and a lot of reps in New England against the Patriots.
It's Josh Reed, WIVB-TV in Buffalo, joining us in the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia. And we know that the team is going to take it 1 week at a time. They're not going to look ahead to next weekend. But, of course, we're NFL fans, and all we want to do is look ahead to more meaningful football when the playoffs get underway. So, Josh, who do you think they will play, and who would you like to see the Bills face off against coming up next weekend?
Well, I think the answer is the same for both. I do think it's going to end up being the Broncos. I think the Chiefs are just in a situation where, you know, they have no reason to play anybody significant reps and snaps. You know, there's nothing on the line for them. The last thing you want to do if you're them is get some starters dinged up. Although I'm not happy about the way they'd be getting in because, quite frankly, they should have beat the Bengals the week before. And instead of going for 2 and going for the win, at the end of the game, Sean Payton elects to kick the extra point. They go to overtime, and Burrow gets the ball 3 times. Good option. Good. There you go. Give Joe Burrow in that offense the ball 3 times. You needed to get 2 yards to win the game and secure your playoff spot. So part of me is like, Sean Payton doesn't deserve to make it after that, in my opinion. But I do. I think they'll get in. I think that, and at the end of the day, I think that's the best matchup of the 3 for the Bills. You know, Bo Nix, rookie quarterback, first playoff game on the road in Buffalo. Sean McDermott's been hell on rookie quarterbacks. We've seen it in the past. Although Drake May played pretty well a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. But, you know, give me my chances with, Sean and Brandon being able to dial some stuff up. Bobby Babich and Sean being able to dial some stuff up against, Bo Nix and Sean Payton. The Broncos have a great defense, though, but we've seen it in the past. Does it really matter? Josh Allen is he's going to be Josh Allen. He's going to be special no matter who's lined up across from him. I still think the Bengals are a team that you don't want to see in. I mean, that would be a tough 7 seed. Joe Burrow and those receivers, I don't think that would make anybody comfortable if all of a sudden it was the Bengals coming to Orchard Park for the wild card game.
The other storyline here, too, and to think that Jim Kelly never won an MVP in Buffalo. Josh Allen, we're expecting him to win the MVP, but Josh, what's your perspective on this? Because you bring it up on social media or to whoever, it's become such a divisive topic. Me saying nice things about Josh Allen is not denigrating Lamar Jackson. How did we get to this point?
No, the last place you want to go for emotionally sound reasoning is Twitter, right? X. That's the last place you're going to search for reasonable conversations because people, no matter what it is, with sports, politics, whatever it is, people are just, like you said, you can't say something nice about the guy that you like without people going, you must hate Lamar. Well, that's not true. First of all, I could make an argument that Joe Burrow, statistically, Joe Burrow's had the best season out of any of them. But, his teams, he even said, he got asked about winning the MVP or not winning it, and he was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. We don't have enough wins. He flat out said he knows. He knows that's part of the equation, even though it's not, quote-unquote, a quarterback stat. Look, I think, in my opinion, and it is biased. It is because I see Josh Allen, and I've seen every rep he's taken. I haven't seen that of Lamar. Now, I've seen a lot of them because they're on national TV a ton. And it just so happens my wife grew up a Baltimore Ravens fan, so I probably see even more than most people do. But I think Lamar's had a special season. I think he's great.
Hold on. Time out. You're from Cleveland. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, but she's not.
Okay.
But she's not. I'm from Cleveland. Yeah, I'm from Canton, Ohio, but she's a PA person who's kind of like in that Harrisburg area, closer to kind of close to Baltimore. So she grew up a Ravens fan because her dad grew up a Colts fan, and then they moved, the whole thing. You know the story. But yeah, I think Lamar's had a special season. And look, if he wins it, I don't think you go, that's an outrage. That's not true. He's been great. Josh has been great. And I do think there is something to do with voter fatigue a little bit. Look, Lamar's won 2. and he won them in years where Josh could have won it. So if I'm a voter, which I think probably there are more than a handful that are getting ready to vote for this award, that are going in kind of split, a little bit up in the air, like, man, I could argue either way on this. I think you'll get some people that will go, it's time for Josh to get one. I get it. I know. I understand the argument that it's not a lifetime achievement award. This wouldn't be giving it to somebody who is in year 14 who had an average year and has never won it, so you're just giving it to him. Josh deserves it. So does Lamar. It's fine. It's okay for both to be great. It's like you said, saying something positive about one doesn't mean you think the other one's trash. It's just I don't know. And at the end of the day, don't say that Josh. I forget what national person. I wanted to throw my laptop.
Josh wants
I forget what national.
Yes. Josh wants the MVP over the Super Bowl. Oh, okay.
When he's actually said multiple times he wants the Super Bowl.
You saw that. That's unbelievable. That is, if you have heard, you don't even have to cover the Bills on a daily basis. All you have to do is listen to Josh Allen say anything at all since day one when he's been in the league. And it's always been about bringing a championship to Buffalo. He has never once said anything about, man, winning an MVP. That'd be the greatest thing I could possibly do. He's never said that. It's just, like I said, I logged off of social media and went, that's it for today. That's it. Time to go back and enjoy the holidays. So, but the MVP conversation's crazy.
Josh, will we have you on? You're in the blast zone, certainly more so than we are, and we're talking about the championship caliber of one Buffalo organization. We have to ask you about the ineptitude of the other organization of Buffalo owned by the Pagulas.
You do this to me every time. We're on a roll. We're talking about good things. The vibes are clean.
I know, but
we're flowing.
Josh,
and then you always do it.
It always makes me. I'm so fascinated by how one owner, two organizations, they appear to be kind of run the same way now, right? You have some similarities in terms of coach and GM and the relationship between the coach and the GM, yet you have one organization where it looks like there's complete buy-in and they're all moving in the right direction, and dysfunction on the other side of things. And I don't want to bring everybody down as we head into the weekend, but it was another terrible loss last night.
It was another, they jump up. They had 3 different leads, plenty of chances to put that game away. And, look, this is an organization that has found a different way to lose. They've invented ways to lose games. But one of the big problems this year has just seemed to be putting teams away. You get a lead, put them away. What are you doing? How are you blowing these 3-goal leads on a consistent basis? It's mind-blowing. And, I have a lot of really, good friends who grew up in the area who are lifelong Sabres fans. And I'm talking, some of them are bigger. They've told me I'm a bigger Sabres fan than Bills fan. And they're like, it just absolutely kills me that they're this bad. And some of them are now becoming just kind of empathetic. It's almost like there's some that are starting to just not care. And that's the worst place you can possibly be as a sports organization. You either want your fan base to be excited, thrilled, pumped that your team's so good, or you want them to be mad because your team's so bad. And some fans are starting to become just lethargic with the team. Just don't care anymore. Don't giving up, not going to games, just eating tickets, and I don't want to go watch it. It's gonna upset me, and I'm like, oh, I mean, it's not a good spot for them to be in, and they lose, they go through on that long losing streak, and then they come back, and then they win 3 in a row, and you hear a few people go, hey, you know what, maybe they'll go a little bit, maybe they'll win 8 of 9, they'll win 9 of 10. And then they do that. They haven't won 4 straight games this season. And, I mean, if you were to bet on it, would you think they will? Because, I wouldn't bet that they'll win 4 straight games this year.
Well, the depressing thing, Josh, is, okay, it's another where do you go from here? We're waiting for movement, but apparently that's not going to happen when the owner flies up to Montreal and says, hey, this is the way it's going to be, and everybody's going to figure this out. So, again, where do the Sabres actually go from here?
I don't know. That's the billion-dollar question, right? I mean, you're going to blow it up again? I've been here. This is my 10th Bills season, okay? So going on 10 years here coming up in the summer. And I've never been around when the Sabres have been good. Like, they just haven't. They've never been good. Like, they've never been relevant. Just period. I mean, it's just – I don't know. And I am not a person, look, being a guy that grew up just outside of Cleveland and watched the Browns blow it up every 2 years, year. So I've seen the franchises that do that. And then it never seems to work. And it's never, you just continue, you're always chasing your tail. And it's just, I hate doing it. But at the same time, it's just, I'm looking at, I don't know how you fix it. I just don't. In the past, it would always be like, okay, you know what? They need to find a goaltender. They need to fix that. They fix that, other things will fall into place. And now it's become a systematic issue. It's just from the top all the way down. It's just, I don't know. And I kind of thought I never thought Lindy Ruff was going to win this team a cup or even get into the cup, but I thought Lindy Ruff probably gives this team a chance to become the first-year Sean McDermott Bills, right? End the drought. We don't care if you get swept in the first round. End it. Get that black cloud out from hanging over the top of this organization, and then take a step back, even if you have to for a year, figure it out, get right. They're already right with the cap, but just, and then take 3 steps forward. But they're never going to get to that spot where they end the drought. And I thought Lindy was going to be able to do that. And right now I'm sitting here going, well, I was wrong about that.
Well, let's talk about something more uplifting. Let's talk about Buffalo Kickoff Live.
You.
Buffalo Kickoff Live.
You got me in a bad spot.
Yeah, no. Buffalo Kickoff Live this Sunday. Josh, tell us all about it. How can we check out more of your work here leading into the season finale?
Yeah, so we'll be previewing Bills and Patriots from 11 to 11:30 on CW23 in Buffalo and Western New York. And then 11:30 to noon on CBS. And for your area and your listeners, most of them, that'll be ROC, with our good buddy Thad Brown. We'll be on there with him. We'll be breaking down the game, previewing, and kind of looking forward to not only the game that afternoon at 1 o'clock, but also kind of looking forward to, okay, if the playoffs were to start, we'll have a little chunk of information, right? Because the Bengals play Saturday, so we'll have a little piece of that puzzle already in place.
Yeah, that would eliminate him. Josh, you were the best. Appreciate you, and we'll see you out at the stadium here for the playoffs. Thanks so much, Josh, for your time today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You got it. Josh Reed, WIVB TV in Buffalo, stopping by to talk some Bills, and we had to talk a little Sabres. We went, a good 45 minutes without addressing that horrible loss.
Here was, and this happened over the holiday week, this ridiculous quote about Josh Allen, how he'd rather win the MVP than the Super Bowl.
Yeah, which one of the clowns on ESPN said this?
Bart Scott.
That's who it was.
Okay, again, talking about biases, this is the former New York Jet.
Yeah.
Okay. And he doesn't say that verbatim, but I'm going to read you the entire quote. If Josh Allen leaves and gets knocked out of the playoffs and he wins the MVP, he's probably going to see that as a successful season because he proved that he didn't need a number one, meaning number one receiver. If Lamar Jackson gets an MVP and loses, he'll view that as a disappointment. So that lets you probably know how the two even views their success with the MVP differently.
Yeah,
how would you know?
That's insane. When anybody that is close to this team, follows this team, listens to what the players say when we have availability with the players. Josh Allen has never once said, yeah, the MVP is it for me. It's always been, I want to win a championship. We're going to win a championship. I'm bringing the Super Bowl to Buffalo.
Let me try to add some nuance, because one time you said, hey, what should the Bills? Bills should win the Super Bowl. And you're like, there's no nuance to this? Well,
anything short of a Super Bowl is it not a failure?
If Josh Allen does win the MVP, but the Bills lose in the divisional round to Baltimore, and it's Lamar Jackson, whatever the case may be, are we going to celebrate that? Because we should, but the announcement comes the night before the Super Bowl, and it'll sting a little bit.
Yeah.
And there will be that, yeah, but.
Yeah. Here's what you'll do. you'll be able to say our Super Bowl, or you'll be able to say our MVP quarterback. You'll have the ability to say that Josh Allen is an MVP quarterback, which we've always said here, for the Bills to make it to the Super Bowl, he needs to play at an MVP level.
Which he has.
For sure.
And I would take it a step further because I was here for all the Kelly years. He's playing the best a Bills quarterback has ever played.
Agreed. Now, that doesn't mean if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, but he wins the MVP, it doesn't mean that it's over. I mean, like, the expectation is the same next year. You got to play at an MVP level, and maybe there's some better pieces around you, or there's some more talent around you, and that's the thing that gets you over whatever it is. The defense bulks up, or whatever might be the Achilles heel. I'm not saying that there is one, but if there is one, whatever that is this postseason, you address in the offseason, and hopefully Josh Allen comes back next year, plays at an MVP level again, and we can have this conversation and this debate for years to come between Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes, and we should all be fine with that. That should be awesome. We should not take any of that for granted, even if it means they're not ultimately winning. So, of course, we want them to win the Super Bowl. We're going to be disappointed if they don't. But, man, look around the rest of the league. You got your guy. And he's playing at an MVP level. You mentioned it. He's playing it better than any Bills quarterback has ever played. I appreciate that we're in the golden age of Buffalo Bills football right now, even if they haven't made it to a Super Bowl yet. I have a hard time believing it's not going to happen with this quarterback at some point. This year or at some point with this quarterback. That's how good he's been.
Denver, are you buying Josh Reed's? Denver is the choice.
I'll tell you who my choice is next.
Okay.
I have a clear vision of who I want to see. And it really has nothing to do with who matches up better. It has everything to do with the optics of what is being presented to us this week, leading into a for a lot of teams, a meaningless Week 18.
We'll try to make you a smarter Bills fan next, too, because when you're watching the game on Sunday, wait a second, why are they feeding the ball to so-and-so? Aha. They should just name this Incentive Sunday. All right, Week 18.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that so-and-so gets the stats here.
That's nice.
And, yes, there are a few Buffalo Bills that would like to make a little more money.
Take a quick break here. Don't forget, joining us next hour as well, Super Agent Lee Steinberg joining us in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
WNBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
The roster move for the Bills today. Mike White coming up to the active roster. He gets signed to a contract next year as well. Good chance we'll see White in action Sunday in New England to make room. Linebacker Nick Morrow was released. Head coach Sean McDermott on the offensive line this week.
Our starting O-line is not, they're going to be dressed, most of them, but they will not be out there ideally. It'll be a lot of those guys who've been busting their butts to, as backups all year long. And so we're going to give them an opportunity to perform and see what they can do.
Linebacker Terrell Bernard, he's been ruled out for this game. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel is questionable. Amerks in Springfield tonight. Rochester with 13 road wins this season, the most in the AHL. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The regular season comes to a close as the Bills travel to Foxborough to take on the Patriots.
I think it'll be a byproduct of trying to win the game. We're intentional about it, but not irresponsible.
Hello, you play to win the game. This really is the epitome of a meaningless game because this is the Bills for all, real meaning. They have a bye this week as well.
Mike White. Mike Danger.
We've been in this situation now consecutive years where you're the 2 seed going into the postseason, but this year is different as they prepare for their postseason campaign.
Gene Battaglia.
Next week we'll know who the playoff opponent would be. Denver, Miami, Cincinnati. Who would you like to see? And is it a different answer from who you would expect to come to Buffalo next week?
I would want to face the Denver Broncos.
I'd love to see the Dolphins.
Joe Burrow.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Just a few minutes away from our friend, super agent Lee Steinberg, stopping by the sports bar in less than 20 minutes. You can stop by the sports bar and pull up a stool anytime on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. Our number is 866-4FAN 585 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. Special thanks to everybody checking us out in the free-to-download Odyssey app. We know some of our regulars prefer listening to us in the free-to-download Odyssey app. The flexibility. You can go back and listen to parts of the show that you may have missed at any time you'd like. And don't forget, if you're into podcasting and you want to hear us in podcast form, we have that for you, too, wherever you get your shows. Search out the Sports Bar. Our video stream up as well on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
Yeah, if you got to go down to the Southern Tier or Buffalo, Syracuse, the app is the way to go.
That's exactly right.
Use the app.
Now, before we took our break, we were talking about the teams that we could potentially be seeing next weekend when the playoffs get underway. Who's coming to Buffalo? And I know that it's not a likely scenario. I want Miami, Gino. Miami is the team I want to see. Tua is something, right? There's something up with Tua.
I've got thoughts on this.
I know he's injured, and I'm not saying a player, should tough it out if they're truly injured, but this hip injury is going to keep him out against the Jets on Sunday. He's still being trotted out there and said, that if he'd definitely play in the postseason. Like, he's not playing this weekend, but he definitely play in the postseason. Do the Dolphins or does Tua realize that they're not in yet? Like, Tyler Huntley is not a lock to win anything on any given week? And maybe I need to be more sympathetic because maybe the effects of CTE are taking hold. But I think the CTE thing and the concussion history of Tua, there's not a lot of self-awareness here with this player. I think the way he handled coming back from those concussions showed a lack of self-awareness. And I just think that there is a less self-aware player in the league than Tua. I want Tua next weekend. LeBron thinks that Tua needs to be more self-aware.
No, he's number 2 on the list. But point being, Tua, there's a little Russell Wilson. Nobody's going to top the king of self-awareness.
Yes.
Mr. Unlimited.
Yeah.
They're saying that hip could be career-ending. And everybody's just putting a nice face on this right now. It's not the same hip.
That's right.
That cost him there. But if you're having hip issues, this isn't good one way or another. And maybe the Dolphins actually move on from Tua. Maybe they move on from everything. And if that's the case, Danger, sign me up for some Miami Dolphins. I'm not scared of the divisional matchup. I've been saying this all along. The Dolphins would be the team I would prefer because, honestly, I don't want to see Joe Burrow. Not the way this team is. Nobody wants to see that. Denver comes with some risk. It is Sean Payton. He did coach how many years against Sean McDermott? He knows what to do. But still, I would think the Bills would win that game. Miami, they're not going to lose to the Jets with Tyler Huntley or whoever. They're going to win that game, Danger. So if Kansas City can do us a solid, boy, things come full circle. Carson Wentz, the apple of our eye.
You have an opportunity. Carson Wentz, 6'4", 235-pound quarterback out of North Dakota State with the blue-collar work ethic and Midwestern values. You know your job. Beat the Broncos. We want Miami.
Gosh, you could get – that would feel like a bye week. No offense, Dolphin fan, but like Tyler Huntley and the Miami Dolphins coming up to Buffalo, and Skylar Thompson one time.
Well,
do
you believe to it when he says, I would play if this was the postseason? I would be out there. I would absolutely be able to go. The doctors are telling him he can't go.
This is a playoff game for you this week.
Correct.
You don't win this week, there is no next week.
Correct. So the doctors are telling him you can't go. You're not going. You can't play. But the player is saying, oh, no, if it was the playoffs, I'd be playing. What are we doing? Which is it?
All right. Well, yeah, and even if you are out there, how's that going to look?
How effective is that, right?
Yeah. This is a day, Danger, that I think as Bills fans, we just kind of reflect two directions here. January 3rd. The highest of highs, the lowest of lows. January 3rd, 1993, 35-3. The Bills were down in a playoff game. Danger, I swear I was there.
Everybody was there.
I swear there was a subway. I swear we have an NBA team. I was there with my old man. Yeah. I will never forget it.
You left early. You came back in. You were outside the gate. You climbed the gate to get back in.
I did not do that. When Bubba McDowell returns the pick six, I say, let's go. My father's like, no, we're going to stay here. So I have my father to thank for that.
Yeah.
And more recently, you were here with me that day, January 3rd, 2022. That was the day, the Monday night game in Cincinnati. The day after. That day here in Rochester, I remember, Danger, it was raining, like really pouring, and it just fit the mood. Everyone was just so down. Everyone had concern for Damar Hamlin. And the Bills, like, how would they even play the game? There was talks they wouldn't even play the game that coming Sunday. Well, they did play the game against New England. Nyheim Hines, his time in Buffalo was short-lived, but boy, that kickoff return helped lift the city, helped lift everyone. The Bills winning that game.
Nyheim Hines. I'll remember it not just for being up late and watching everything that happened on the field in Cincinnati, the unprecedented nature of the game being called, and everything that went with that, but then following it up the following day. Today here at Odyssey, one of our shows, Moose and Breezy on PXY, this show that I brought together. They're celebrating their second year anniversary. Their first show on the air was the Damar Hamlin show, and they both will say when they got off the air that first day, like, yeah, we don't know if we should do this, because how do you try to go on the air, and we went through something similar our first show because Colin Kaepernick decided he wanted to take a knee.
Yeah.
And it became the story that everybody was talking about, and it wasn't anything that we really wanted to talk about on our first day. So to see where we were then versus where we are and where he specifically is now, and I think there was a word today about him. There's a new scholarship that he's putting up.
Yeah, for the training staff, it's going to be in their name of the Buffalo Bills, which that's really cool. Like the good things that have come out of this.
Amazing.
And let me just say, I never even thought Damar Hamlin would be on a field again, much less starting and contributing, much less being named a Pro Bowl alternate.
He's had a nice season. And, even though it seems dark, there is a light at the end of that tunnel, and it's one hell of a story. And I'm like you, I remember being at that comeback game. I was there. I didn't get frustrated. I didn't leave like I know a lot of people left, and they didn't come back in there, or they couldn't get back.
Who were you with, Dan?
I stayed the whole game.
Who were you with?
I went by myself.
No, you didn't go by yourself.
I went solo.
Where'd you sit?
Rock pile. Yeah, rock pile. Somewhere in the rock pile.
Who had 3 touchdowns for the Bills that day?
Andre Reed. Frank Reich. I was there. What do you mean? Who wasn't there? Everybody was there. I was in Minnesota. I was watching the game in an igloo somewhere.
Dude, you just gave me a back spasm. I'm laughing. People, I get accused of fake laugh. No, like, I'm laughing, and how do I just throw my back out?
Oh, no.
Stop.
Oh, no. Tell me you're old without telling me you're old. Stop. I threw my back out laughing.
Stop.
That's not cool.
No, it hurts.
Hey, we touched on this a little bit yesterday, and this was happening yesterday while we were on the air. I'm talking about the quarterfinal match between Georgia and Notre Dame. And with Georgia losing to the Irish, we have a sweep of the college football playoff teams with byes being eliminated. So what I said yesterday, kind of tongue-in-cheek, like if you thought that the college football playoff was a bad idea, you're really going to be upset when they expand it to 16 teams, because that feels like an inevitability now. The powers that be are armed with more ammunition, no more buys, 8 games in the opening round, more TV revenue. It's a one-year sample, but there's not a ton of incentive to finish with a conference championship when you see how it played out for these 4 teams. The opening round bye didn't really serve them. Also, a big congratulations to the real champions of the SEC. Give it up for the Northern Illinois Huskies, champions of the SEC Conference.
You know Greg Sankey is all about this because do you want to take a guess who the first 4 teams were actually out? You know one of them. That was Alabama.
Sure.
Because Alabama was actually ranked higher than 2 teams, Arizona State and Clemson, but because they had that cockamamie rule about being, a champ, they get the bye there. So it would have been Alabama, which don't get me wrong. I agree that Alabama should have been left out. Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Miami of Florida. Yeah, those sound like blue chip programs.
Would have been fun.
Yeah.
Would have been fun. And by the way, if one of them is a 15 and they have to play against the number 1 team, like I would have signed up for Miami of Florida against Oregon.
This isn't going to get discussed. Here's why. Because we'll forget about this. And we will look at the end product. And the end product is going to have either Notre Dame or
great.
Penn State.
Yep.
Notre Dame or Penn State.
It's big.
It is big.
Yeah.
And MLK Day used to be the day for the NBA. The NBA got flicked away by like a bug by the NFL. Now college football, nope, this is our day. Bam, national championship. Here we come.
Yeah.
Could you imagine Penn State, Ohio State? Notre Dame, Texas, any combination.
You got a great setup here for an unbelievable college football championship. And it was happening while we were on the air. Notre Dame at the end of that first half just kind of like Georgia just fell apart, wasn't able to recover. So congratulations to the Irish. And I'm going to get some intel this weekend. I think my brother-in-law was talking a pretty big game during the Boise State game. Oh, we're going. We'll get some intel with some inside sources on what's going on there at the Orange Bowl coming next week.
All right. You can't put them on, though.
No. Can I put my niece on?
Oh, that would be funny.
She wants to do what we do. She's going to school to do what we do.
That would be funny.
Live reports?
Live reports. Like your old man can't come on the show, but we'll put you on the show.
All right. What else do we have?
We got? Okay, so Week 18 is weird, right, for many reasons in the NFL. But one of the things that's different, contract incentives for these players. Danger, you tell me. Okay, these are Buffalo Bills players that could make a little more coin this week should some things go their way. You tell me if it happens or not. The big one here. 1 sack for Von Miller. That's $1.5 million if Von Miller gets 1 sack.
How many does he have right now? Do we know?
I do know.
Because I still have his incentives from when he restructured. He got $1 million for 2 sacks. He get 2.5 for 4 sacks. And then it goes up to $4 million for 6 sacks. So is he at 5?
He's at 5.
So he's at 5. If he gets 6, then he would get $4 million in incentives for getting a sack today. Do I think he's going to get there on Sunday? Yeah, I think Von Miller. Well, again, this is the whole does he play, doesn't he play?
Well, he won. Come on. He took a pay cut.
That is interesting to see.
That is interesting.
Right, because you've got a coach who's essentially saying, yeah, most of the backups going to get a chance to go out there and play.
You were also suspended here. So you had your chance, but oops, you were out 4 games.
Right. Do we do you a solid and let you go get that that 6th sack, which would get you up to $4 million in incentives for the season. I'll keep an eye on that. If he's out there, he's getting it.
A guy we really like because we've had him on the show a couple times out at camp, but I don't think he's had a good year, Danger. Daquan Jones. Half a sack, he gets $250,000.
Yeah.
This is beyond his control. Taron Johnson, who, according to Terrible Time Timmy, became Terrible Take Timmy, is average.
Terrible Take Timmy.
Taron Johnson, one more interception, $250,000.
I mean, is he playing? That I guess if he's out there,
he's not going to be playing.
He's not going to be playing.
Yeah.
So no, but if he was out there and this was a meaningful game for the Bills, he would get. Yes, I think he would get that. Like I really believe that these guys, it matters to them that they get these incentives.
Now, if you see them feeding Dawson Knox for some reason here, Dawson Knox needs 8 receptions and 89 yards for $200,000.
Yeah, no. I guess who are you throwing it to if you're Mitch Trubisky? Who's your tight ends? Is it Quentin Johnson? Is it
No,
Dawson?
it's Morris.
Or Quentin Morris
Yeah.
and Dawson Knox?
Yeah, Kincaid doesn't see the field.
You're not getting Kincaid out there? I mean, maybe Knox gets it. Maybe they take care of Josh's guy. I don't know, but it is it's interesting how we've come to this point. And you could look at any team around the league, and I'm sure you have a handful of players that are right on the edge of hitting payday for their performance.
We got Lee Steinberg coming up. Quickly, we go to Brad in Rochester. Hey, Brad, what's up, buddy?
Hey, I got a question. If Vaughn gets this extra $4 million, does that come off the dead cap that we would have to pay him if we cut him?
Let's see. It's a $15.4 million dead cap hit to move on from him after this season. And any earned incentives would factor into the Bills' adjusted salary cap for 2025.
Yeah, so you don't want him to get this. It's a short, long.
Right.
Yeah,
Rest up, Vaughn. We
Yeah.
need you in the postseason. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate the call. 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us. We're going to take a break and come back with Super Agent Lee Steinberg next on The Fan.
With Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick. Is that a corn? That ain't no corn. What? That's a super corn! Oh, wow!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
Mercs are in action tonight at 7:05 on 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester. The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills signing quarterback Mike White to the active roster today. Good chance we'll see White Sunday in New England, says head coach Sean McDermott.
Right, that's the plan. He'll be suited up, and hopefully we get a chance to get him in the game. And I'm anxious and excited to look at Mike. He's done a phenomenal job with us, and I'm hoping that comes to fruition on Sunday afternoon there.
To make room, linebacker Nick Morrow was released. Linebacker Terrell Bernard ruled out for this game. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel is questionable. Bills in New England. Our coverage will begin at 9 a.m. this Sunday here on The Fan Rochester. We'll talk some football coming up next. Super agent Lee Steinberg joining us in the sports bar. Amerks in Springfield tonight. Rochester with 13 road wins this season. That is the most in the AHL. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-4326. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I always appreciate when we get to spend some time with Lee Steinberg, who's good with his time to join us here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. There's an interesting time in the NFL season right now, Lee, with the regular season wrapping up. A lot of players who will get on the field this week to kind of play for their future, and a lot of head coaches that by this time next week will be looking for work. How are you this weekend, Lee?
I'm doing great. I think Monday may not be black. It might be light brown. Last year, 5 coaches were fired, and we're probably on pace for right about that.
Do players, do agents, do they have any leverage? Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you were getting involved in any of these situations, any of these discussions, Lee?
Yes. If you had key players on a roster, and there were weekends in the 90s where I had half the starting quarterbacks, then obviously they get pulled into decision-making, not as a decision maker, but for input. And so many times if a owner was on the line, he would pull in the quarterback. Sometimes I was in those meetings and talk about the head coach and the future of the head coach. And so while ultimately it was the team's decision, they were trying to get as much intel as possible from a player perspective.
Lee, I know we've talked about this in the past with you, and you're great at telling us your insight and dealing with these owners, these organizations. And some organizations appear a little bit more dysfunctional than other organizations. How do you deal with an organization that just looks like a rudderless ship at sea, that looks like there's just no functionality at all, no direction? They maybe have with undergone years and years of losing. I'm looking at a specific franchise in the NFL right now that finds themselves looking for not just a head coach, but also a GM. When you're involved in that, what does that all look like? And do you try to avoid those situations, being in the situation that you were in as an agent for all those years?
Absolutely. Trying to get players to those organizations that have ownership, which is stable, that knows how to hire the right coach in front office, that has a plan, and doesn't make changes over and over again. Because every time that you fire a coach and assistant coaches, you're destabilizing the incumbent players who have to learn a brand new system, have to adjust to brand new relationships. So when you look at the Mike Tomlins of the world, a group like Pittsburgh, because they're so stable, is able to do well. Or if you're at Kansas City and you have complete alignment between the GM Brett Veach and Andy Reid and Clark Hunt and the ownership. And the Green Bay Packers is another really well-run franchise. Buffalo obviously has their act together. And those franchises, if you can get players there Now, the draft gives the absolute right of a franchise to draft the player, but behind the scenes, if you can body language your way towards the winning organizations, that organization is much more impactful in terms of winning than any specific player outside the franchise quarterback. That also is key. But remember, parity is supposed to have franchises go through rough times and they come back and rebuild, then they're on top for a few years and then they go back down. So anytime you see a team that is consistently down or consistently winning, look at the organization.
Lee Steinberg, super agent, our guest here in the Sports Bar. And Lee, hopefully I can articulate my thought here, but we're going through these processes now. We see the Jets, they interview Vrabel, they interview other candidates here. And I'm just wondering, like, not just the Jets, but the NFL in general. I'm sure some of these are actually done the right way, and some of them might be predetermined. And I look at the case of Bill Belichick. I was surprised, Lee, he went to North Carolina, unless maybe some of this stuff is already predetermined, meaning his representation took kind of a straw poll, and he knew he wasn't going to have any opportunities in the NFL.
Well, that must have happened, and part of it would be what powers that coach was asking for. So is the coach going to have final say on draft picks? Is the coach going to have the ability to pay his assistants whatever he wants? Is the coach a coach like Belichick, who's been on top for so long, may have had specific demands where when he went to Atlanta last year, that seemed like very logical, but it just never happened. So clearly before a coach like Belichick would have turned away from pro football to go to North Carolina, he must have figured out that he didn't have any options. Now, college football right now is chaotic. So at least in the NFL, there's a draft. There are restrictions on free agency. The NILs have made college coaching, anarchy, because it's all about who has the biggest alum base that can offer the most money to a player leaving high school and going to college. And then later, there are all these raids happening at the portal level. So there's never, and then you have conference realignment. There's never been a worse time to enter college football.
Well, I was going to get your take on that because we're in the middle of it, and we haven't seen a college football playoff like this before. And I think that there's been a lot of people that these matchups haven't been great, and the bye week teams didn't succeed, and we need to talk about how we're going to make this better next year. And ultimately, the thing that they maybe should be looking at changing, whether you're talking about the portal and when they open that up or how they open it up and NIL and everything else, as you mentioned, it's chaotic. Where do you see it all going, Lee? How do you see this all playing out here over the next 5-10 years?
The problem is you don't have an NCAA that is taking charge and laying down some rules or limitations. So this is the law of unintended consequences. They passed NIL in California initially back in 2020, and the thought was to give players who generate revenue for a university more financial support and assistance. But you know what? The players would have been happy for another $10,000, not $14 million. And now we have a complete free enterprise system, and no one is taking charge. Does it come from a federal level or political? Does it come from the NCAA? Right now, it's the Oklahoma Land Rush, and those colleges, those 4 top divisions, are pulling away from everyone else because they have the resources to buy the best players. So consequently, they'll be playing at a higher level. And ultimately, I think they'll do away with the NCAA. And those 4 top conferences will do their own negotiating with the television networks and put their own rules together. So we're in again, the goal was a worthy one, but what it's morphed into is quite chaotic.
Yeah, Lee, I look at college basketball, say, for instance, you have so many of these blue chip coaches, Tony Bennett, the guy just in Miami, and they're pointing to, some of the things that they're dealing with, and they're walking away. This isn't the sport that I, got into, and I'm going to go do something else. For your profession, is it tougher today to be an agent than it was back when you had half the league quarterbacks under your watch?
So, our practice is about the athlete as role model. So we ask them to go back and retrace their roots to the high school, collegiate, and professional community. And then we have heavy emphasis on preparing for second careers, looking at player health. All that plays well with someone who's a college junior or senior and has the help of their parents. But now you have 15-year-olds at the high school level looking for marketing agents. And if the marketing agent also represents pro players and does a good job, that whole transaction is done when someone's 15. Well, that's not exactly the type of player and family that I'm looking for. It's just way too early. So sure, it has a big effect on the ability to represent players because it used to be that a player in football would turn to be a junior or senior and think it was coming. They'd have an organized system for selecting agents. They'd go through interviews. They had prepared questions. Now, all of a sudden, that's happening at a high school level. Part of the reason that you see certain quarterbacks do so well is that in the old days, you couldn't really tell till someone was a junior or senior in college. Now, parents are spotting a 13-year-old and getting him advanced coaching and education. They're playing in 11-on-11 tournaments, and the whole process is accelerated.
Lee, I'm curious, as we approach the end of the regular season in the NFL and you observe what's going on in the league and the games that are being played and the athletes that are playing those games, what has you excited about the NFL as we get ready for the postseason? And when you're watching, do you like single out players and think, oh, man, that would have been fun to represent that player at this time? Are there specific players that have you excited heading into the postseason?
Well, of course, we still represent Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Not bad.
They had this really off season. They were only 15-1, right? But I think part of what's really changed this year is the fact that games are coming down to the fourth quarter, the last drive, the last kick, the last play. And so really there's no game except a complete blowout that you can turn off this year because it comes down to the end. Kicking's having a disproportionate effect. But the games are more exciting because maybe a third of them are blowouts, but they tend to be really evenly balanced. And, anyone, it's who's going to perform in the critical moments, what quarterback in adversity has thrown 2 interceptions, the crowd's booing, the game's getting out of hand, who's got the ability to compartmentalize, adopt a quiet mind, and accelerate and elevate their energy level at the very end of the game. And it's that close.
Lee, we were having some fun before you came on, pointing out Week 18, the NFL. You see some things that normally you don't see when it comes to the player incentives. Guys that if they hit a number, they're going to get paid. For example, Von Miller with one more sack, that'll mean an extra $1.5 million in his pocket. Do you have any stories like that from your players over the years? Was the incentives in a contract, was that something you would find yourself using when negotiating a deal?
So there are a lot less incentives now. There are two categories, likely to be earned and unlikely. And the only way you can put an incentive in a contract that doesn't immediately count against the cap, just as if the money was paid, is to elevate performance over previous years. And you probably only have that once. So you have much less incentives. They're still there. But people always ask me, would a team sit a player down because it would cost them X money? No is the answer. First of all, the players are hyper competitive, and they're not worrying about next year's draft. They're worrying about their own personal performance and how they're doing. And those amounts of money that are in these incentives, whether it's $500,000 or $2 million or $1.5 million, is not enough to influence a coach who's worried about his own job to play or not play certain players.
Well, what about that? Because we've got a game here for the Bills on Sunday in New England that is meaningless for the Buffalo Bills. They know they're going to be the 2 seed, and we know that going into this game, most of the starters aren't going to play. But you have guys like Von Miller, who with one sack will increase his incentive up by $1.5 million. We've got a tight end in Dawson Knox who needs to have a pretty massive game in order to hit his incentives. But you also get the sense that these guys might not see the field because the coach has decided, no, we're going to rest for the postseason. Does that rub players the wrong way? Does that send a negative message, especially at a time when you're trying to get everybody on the same page heading into the postseason?
You know what? My temptation would be to go to the owner and say, look, it's in the benefit of the team that the player not play. Can we just agree that he would have made this incentive and deem it made and earned if you're going to sit him last week?
Yeah. Last one for me, Lee, and it's kind of a hot topic. Saquon Barkley could have been the record holder, breaking Eric Dickerson's rushing record. They opted to sit him, and just wanted to get your thoughts here on that, because when you're advising one of your clients, does optics come into play there? Meaning, hey, Saquon, this might be better for the team overall if in terms of just sitting this one out.
Well, my understanding is that part of it was his decision. And so people have different feelings about records as opposed to what's going to get a team to the Super Bowl. And Saquon Barkley, I'm sure, desperately wants to get to the Super Bowl. The consequence of him getting to the Super Bowl and playing well is that the amount of endorsements and everything else he'll make is there. And I am sure that in his mind, if he did it this year, he can do it next year.
Lee, it is great to catch up with you as always. Really appreciate you giving us some time this afternoon. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Happy New Year, bud.
Thank you. You too.
There he is,
Thanks,
Super
Lee.
Agent Lee Steinberg, joining us in the sports bar. Love getting his insight. It's always, man, it's just so interesting to talk to a guy, he said it, who at one point in his career had half of the quarterbacks in the NFL on his roster of clients. It's magnificent.
Yeah, the inspiration. We've talked to him about this before. He was the inspiration for Jerry Maguire. He actually has a cameo in Jerry Maguire at the end. So
yeah, really, really fascinating stuff there. As the NFL wraps up its regular season, the incentive conversation's a good one. That's it's fun to think, like, if you're watching the game on Sunday and you see 40 out there on the field,
what's he doing out there in the second half?
He's out there because he's trying to get paid. If you see Dawson Knox out there and you're like, well, what the hell, man? I thought the starters weren't going to play. No, if Dawson Knox, what is it, 8 for
89, which that would be a really good day, but you could feed him that.
That'd be a great day for Dawson Knox.
You could. That's attainable.
Well, yes, of course. Taron Johnson, get a pick? Yeah, if Taron Johnson is out there.
That one's a little more random to me, of course. But the Von Miller thing, Does Sean McDermott say, no, Von, we really need you rested and healthy? Coach, it's $1.5 million I gave back. I'd like to get that back.
Yeah, it would go from, so he has 5 sacks, correct?
Yep.
5 sacks gets him $2.5 million for the season.
Mm-hmm.
So he's earned an additional $2.5 million.
Yeah.
And one more sack gets him to $4 million.
Yeah.
It escalates to $4 million.
It's $1.5 million, that sack.
God. And who knows whether or not he would have eclipsed that if he hadn't missed a part of the season, right? Because he was suspended.
That's
something.
Yeah.
If you're the Bills, that's something you could say, hey man, you're out there when you needed to be out there, and as a team, this is what we're doing. Congratulations on getting your $2.5 million in incentives.
Well, what Lee says, though, it's accurate that there are riches at the end of this, when you are a Super Bowl champion. And for Von Miller, the idea that he could win with 3 different organizations.
Oh, right.
I mean, that should be the goal.
And despite all of the stuff off the field with Von Miller, he is still somebody that was being used to endorse products. He's still going to have that. He's a star. He's a name. He's going to get his money when he retires.
At minimum, I think Von, if he could be better than Bart Scott, let's say, for instance. He'll find himself some gigs.
Sure, absolutely. That was Lee Steinberg, super agent, joining us here in the Sports Bar. Nice way to kick off your weekend as we get ready for Happy Hour, which is coming up next on the Fan Rochester. We've got a Buffalo Bills signing today. We've got the final injury report of the week. It's a good injury report for the Buffalo Bills. We'll explain. And we've also got some coaches coming in for interviews with the New York Jets that we can talk about as well. We've got time for your calls. You can join us at 866-4326. That's 585-866-4FAN. And we'll get you set for your sports weekend with Happy Hour next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick. Is that a corn? That ain't no corn. What? That's a super corn! Oh, wow!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
HD2 Rochester. And streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester. An Odyssey sports station.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
At quarterback for the Buffalo Bills this week, well, Josh Allen will start. He will quickly give way to Mitchell Trubisky. And you'll also see quarterback Mike White out there. White signed to the active 53 today. Head coach Sean McDermott talking about the offensive line this week.
Our starting O-line is not, they're going to be dressed, most of them, but they will not be out there ideally. It'll be a lot of those guys who've been busting their butts to, as backups all year long. And so we're going to give them an opportunity to perform and see what they can do.
The one player that has been ruled out, linebacker Terrell Bernard with a quad injury. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel, the only player that is listed as questionable. 9 a.m. for our pregame coverage. 1 o'clock the kickoff here in the Fan Rochester on Sunday. Amherst and Springfield tonight. We'll have the call at 7. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The regular season comes to a close as the Bills travel to Foxborough to take on the Patriots.
I think it'll be a byproduct of trying to win the game. We're intentional about it, but not irresponsible.
Hello, you play to win the game. This really is the epitome of a meaningless game because this is the Bills for all, real meaning. They have a bye this week as well.
Mike White. Mike Danger.
We've been in this situation now consecutive years where you're the 2 seed going into the postseason, but this year is different as they prepare for their postseason campaign.
Gene Battaglia.
Next week we'll know who the playoff opponent would be. Denver, Miami, Cincinnati. Who would you like to see? And does that answer, is it a different answer from who you would expect to come to Buffalo next week?
I would want to face the Denver Broncos.
I'd love to see the Dolphins. Joe Burrow.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Happy hour in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Thanks for starting your weekend with us here on The Fan Rochester and the free-to-download Odyssey app, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, streaming on Twitch and sounding our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app on your smart device when you ask it to play. 95.7 The Fan. For all that we've talked about leading up to Sunday's regular season finale in New England, the Buffalo Bills and the starters getting a rest, Allen starting, then everybody kind of taking a back seat and letting some of the backups get out there. We've only barely scratched the surface of what this game means to the New England Patriots.
Right.
They should not win this game. They should not win this game. The Patriots should lose this game.
They are going to play Drake May, but they're going to be without their best defensive player, in my opinion. Their best defensive player, Christian Gonzalez, corner. He's still in concussion protocol. Highly unlikely he'll clear by the time Sunday comes around. The Patriots would pick number 1 overall.
Yep.
And that gives you options. You want Travis Hunter, make the pick. You want to move down a few slots and still get Travis Hunter because some quarterback-hungry team needs to get up to number 1 to get their guy. Yes, absolutely. Here's the problem, Danger. You have a head coach that really is going to be coaching for his life. If Gerard Mayo, barring the owner saying...
What's his name? Did you call him Gerard Mayo? You're still
Gerard.
You're still mispronouncing it. Let's just keep it simple, Gene. Mr. Mayo.
Mr. Mayo.
Mr. Mayo. They named a bowl after him tonight. I think the Mr. Mayo Bowl is actually between Virginia Tech and Minnesota. We'll see a coach get dunked by Mr. Mayo.
I feel like there should be cliff notes to our show sometimes. Yes, one time I mispronounced Coach Mayo's name to his face, and he corrected me.
Not as a coach, as a rookie.
As a rookie.
As a rookie in the NFL, you called him Jared Mayo.
Jared Mayo.
And he corrected you and said Gerard. And then it threw you off to the point where you couldn't remember if it was Jared or Gerard, and instead you, a grown man, said to the rookie, "Thank you, Mr. Mayo." And then you went on with your day. And now he's the head coach of the Patriots. He's not Gerard Mayo. He's Mr. Mayo.
I don't know what I regret more, not doing my homework before approaching him or sharing that story with you.
You have to share the story. So Mr. Mayo has something to coach for sure.
Mr. Mayo should be fired.
Is it too little too late? I mean, I think the way they performed against the Chargers with a stadium full of fans chanting that he needs to go might be enough, but the things that we don't know are his relationship with the Krafts and who really initiated that succession plan for Bill Belichick. Was it initiated by the Krafts, or was it more on the recommendation of Bill Belichick? Hey, when I leave, this is the guy you want.
It's one of those, if he stays, this is the Kraft saying this. If he goes, we're just going to kind of turn the page here. The answer is simple. If Mike Vrabel is sitting out there, go hire Mike Vrabel and find some offensive coordinator with clout, and there will be. Josh McDaniels, you want to do McDaniels 3.0 in New England? Yeah, I think most people would sign up for that out there. What about Brian Daboll? Wow. That would be something, Brian Daboll back in the division in New England, and we would be actually nervous entering next year. As far as the Sunday danger, I think the Bills will win. For this reason, because the culture of the Buffalo Bills, these backups are all going to be playing for jobs, and they're all going to get the full support of everybody. I just think there's going to be kind of some of that run for the bus end of the year. You see this. It's easy to figure out which teams are going to be laying down. The Jets, even though Tyler Huntley is starting for the Miami Dolphins this week, I don't expect the New York Jets to rise up all of a sudden there and win in Week 18.
Mike Vrabel, since you brought him up, interviewed with the Jets today, and his contract with Cleveland, he was a consultant with the Browns this year. That contract expired this week, so he is free to start looking for that head coaching job. And if he's interviewing with the Jets today and the Patriots do end up moving on from Mr. Mayo, you would imagine that maybe there's a conversation with Mike Vrabel within the next week in New England as well.
Funny how, talking with Dan Leberfeld, we learned this connection. Mike White, like he and his family close to Joe Brady.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's always a connection in the NFL. You know somebody who knows somebody, or you grew up together, or you work together, or whatever it is. It's in the NFL, in a lot of walks of life. It's not necessarily what you know, but who you know. Your connections and your relationships matter. And there is a relationship between Mike White and Joe Brady's families. Mike White getting signed to the active roster today, so he's on the 53-man roster for Sunday. Nick Morrow being released, the linebacker, in a corresponding move, and we heard from Sean McDermott that Mike White will probably get some time on the field, and a lot of these guys. I mean, this is an evaluation period. You guys want to be a part of this team. Show us something. You've been great all season and helping us out week in and week out in practice settings. Get out there now and make hay for yourself. I love what that represents. It's a preseason game that isn't in the preseason. It's a preseason game that will, help your record. It's a preseason game that could end the tenure of a head coach in New England, even though it's a Week 18 game, and the Bills don't really have anything to play for.
I love thinking about who might get promoted from the practice squad. And if I had to predict, okay, and I don't know this for sure, but hearing that soundbite from Sean McDermott at the top of the hour talking about the offensive line, how, okay, the starters may be out there. They're going to be out there really quick. I would accept Will Clapp, a player they do like. He's going to get promoted once again. What about this being the Frank Gore Jr. game? The last thing.
There you go.
I want, we're focusing on Allen and some of the skill players, but don't put any miles on James Cook or Ray Davis or certainly Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson's been nice.
I think Ray Davis gets a lot of run. I think Ray Davis as a rookie will get a lot of run in this game. But to what you're saying, if it was a Ray Davis, Frank Gore Jr. game?
I think Frank Gore Jr., yes. Frank Gore Jr. on the practice squad. Here's your chance, kid.
Yeah, I would love to see that. That would be a lot of fun. So even though it's a game that won't really matter in terms of seeding for the Bills, and you could say it's meaningless, I do think that there is a lot of compelling elements to the game in New England on Sunday. We'll have the action for you here on the Fan. Rochester. Kickoff at 1. Pregame gets underway at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning.
You and I are in lockstep because we can discuss this looking ahead here. Who would the Buffalo Bills be best served playing? The answer is the Miami Dolphins.
I want the Dolphins.
Get out of here with that divisional stuff. Like, the Dolphins right now are a mess, and they're going to back in because they play Cleveland and the Jets? You mean to tell me, Tyler Huntley, the storyline out of Miami is this. I always thought it would be the concussions. We all did. Like, that would have brought Tua Tagovailoa's career to a premature end. I don't know about this hip thing, Danger. Like, that's really what ended Bo Jackson's career prematurely. Like, this is like number 2, but this is in the other hip now for Tua. But don't worry, because if the Dolphins do get in, Tua says he's going to be out there.
I think that's crazy. Well, first of all, I think it's crazy that he's out there saying that. Like, he made it clear that the doctors are forcing him to not play. They forced him out of last week's game, reason why he won't play this week. But if it was the playoffs next week, he definitely would play. Huh? Why are we even talking like this? I mean, why are we talking in these absolutes? If it's about the doctors, then let's make it about the doctors. Hey, we'll see if what the doctors say. We'll see how the rehab goes. But by saying what he said, it just feels there's a lack of self-awareness there. I think you're ingrained to say, I'm a football player. These are the right things to say. Of course I want to be out there. Of course I'm going to play. But then the next minute you're saying, well, the doctors are the reason why I'm not playing. Well, the doctors probably know best, but this is the same guy who's taken as many hits to the head as anybody out there, and we've seen the effects of that on the field, had an opportunity to say or do what many thought was the right thing, and absolutely not. Didn't even cross his mind. He's coming back. He's going to continue to play. You start to worry about Tua long term, not just with the head injuries, but now with this hip, which isn't the hip that he hurt in college. It's the other hip.
Right. So do the Dolphins cut bait here? Like, you could be I'm going to entertain this, that Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, if they just kind of go, and then you were going to get these medical reports that Tua isn't going to be there, this would be the time to start over. Like, how are they set up to win football games with Mike McDaniel as the head coach running an offense that really doesn't have a quarterback? You'd be better off served just starting all over again in Miami. But maybe they don't do that. But the point being here, the bigger one, is that the Bills are so far ahead of this division where Miami at quarterback for the future looks iffy at best. The Jets don't have a plan. And New England, they feel good, but is Drake May really the guy here? Are they really going to get him the support he needs to be the guy?
I think a lot about Drake May, the season that he's had, what we could potentially see out of him in the future. And I think so much of his future is going to depend on who the team surrounds him with here in the next couple of years. Because it probably won't be Alex Van Pelt. It may not be Gerard Mayo, the guy that drafted him. And, the work that he puts in the offseason, I would imagine, be on the same level as any quarterback that's young in the NFL and impressionable and trying to get ahead. So that aside, who within the organization is working with him? And all I can do is I think to a quarterback who eventually won a Super Bowl, but he had to leave a dysfunctional team in order to do it. When the Lions were terrible with Matt Stafford as their quarterback, nobody said it's Matt Stafford's fault. Everybody looked at everything that was around him, whether it was a porous offensive line or an incompetent coaching staff. He got the crap beat out of him. They didn't win a lot of football games. He goes to L.A., obviously he wins a Super Bowl. And I think about Drake May being that kind of player. You can view Sam Darnold in the same breath, right? Like a quarterback who came in with a lot of fanfare, didn't look good, but when you looked at what he had around him, could you really blame the guy? I mean, maybe he wasn't made for the Jets. Maybe he wasn't made for Carolina. The idea that Carolina had both Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold on their roster, and you look at what they've done this year. If you're Carolina and you're a fan of that team, right now you're like, I can't be a fan of this team. Look at what they've done. Look how horrible they are.
But then again, the Niners had Darnold. He never got a shake there because Mark Purdy's our guy.
Well, I think there's something to that. I think if you have your guy, you recognize we have our guy. And to bring it back around to Miami, Tua's the guy. He's the guy. And so as long as he's healthy, they'd be crazy if it was something other than health to move on from him. If he can't play because of the head injuries or because of the hip, and this is it, and he has to make that decision in the offseason, yeah, Miami's in big trouble. Because at least now they know with what they have their guy. The Vikings have their guy. They can't move on from Sam Darnold. That would be crazy for Sam Darnold for the Vikings to allow him to leave in free agency. Crazy. But maybe there are teams that are licking their chops saying, you know what, whatever the Vikings offer him, we'll offer him more, and he'll be our quarterback moving forward.
$83 million dead cap for Tua.
Whew. Are we back in Cap is a myth territory?
I think so. A cap's going up. Are you kidding me? As long as Netflix and anybody else wants to write a check there.
I will even say Cap is a myth when you look at the success of the Bills and the Broncos this year. If I'm not mistaken, teams 1 and 2 in dead cap money in the NFL this season, both playoff teams. Cap is a myth. Cap is a myth. You can't. I mean, when we started training camp, I remember thinking to myself, that dead cap money is going to be a hard thing for them to overcome. And when we saw the players on the roster and we saw the talent at training camp, I don't know, man.
Well, I'm going to say yes, but there's something that happened this year. By and large, the Bills have stayed healthy. Again, the offensive line, left to right, pretty much the same. It's the secondary,
yeah.
Like, I don't want to jinx anything, but if you go into a playoff game down a few guys back there, that's where it shows up, Danger.
And I also think Josh Allen took that next step. That was the question. And we've said it as long as he's been the quarterback of this team. If he plays at an MVP level, this team can make the Super Bowl. I think any team that has an MVP level quarterback can be a Super Bowl contender. Hell, we're afraid of the Bengals because they have an MVP caliber quarterback playing really, really good right now, even though they don't have a winning record and they're fighting for their lives to get into the playoffs. So we saw him take that next step, and now it's just a matter of finishing it. Now it's just a matter of getting there. But, and I know we talked about this earlier with Josh Reed from WIVB, because he brought up the Bart Scott quote, which is a ridiculous thing for Bart Scott to say about Josh Allen being happy with the MVP, even if the team, I'm paraphrasing, even if the team weren't to make the Super Bowl. I don't know where that comes from when all you've heard this guy say is, all I want to do is bring a championship to Buffalo. So if that competitive fire and if Josh Allen, who we've seen this year, do the thing that elite athletes do, make those around him better, fair to say he's done that, right? James Cook, a second-round running back, looks like one of the best running backs in the league. Khalil Shakir, I mean,
Shakir has been great. He stepped forward this year.
Mac Hollins, case closed. He's made those around him better. And that's you can't ask for much more than that. Well, you can ask for a Super Bowl. That's what we're hoping.
It all starts next week, Danger.
Can't wait.
No, if it's Denver, I think the Bills will be fine too.
I think they win that game, but I'd be nervous, and then our insecurities will be in full display if it's Baltimore in the divisional round. Even if we're hosting, we'll be biting our nails.
Oh, who says winning a championship is easy?
It shouldn't be. Absolutely right. So Vrabel interviewing with the Jets today. Ron Rivera also interviewed for the head coaching job with the Jets. A couple of GM interviews in New York with ESPN's Louis Riddick, former Falcons GM Thomas Dimitroff, and former Titans GM John Robinson. And we were wondering earlier if John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, because they were both there in Tennessee simultaneously, what that was like, what that relationship was like. And we know that when Robinson left, Vrabel didn't really see eye to eye with the current GM in Tennessee, which was part of what led to him leaving. What led to Robinson leaving was, the trading of A.J. Brown, overpaying Ryan Tannehill, and the idea that one of our regulars, Chris, in South Central Kentucky, who's a little bit more in the blast zone there for the Titans, tells us that at the end of the tenure, Vrabel and Robinson didn't really see eye to eye on anything. So maybe they are independently interviewing these guys, not in a way where it's like, hey, hire the coach first, like the Bills did, hire the coach first and bring in the GM, which I think makes more sense. But the Jets are the Jets.
I'm going to read you a quote, Danger. You tell me which head coach said this. When looking back on the season, I'm going to read this with a straight face, right? Talking about this season, this one was tough. It was tough just to maintain the focus and the drive and each week be competitive. Oh, isn't that your job?
Doug Peterson?
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, why not just say, bring up Shad Khan right there and do it right there in front of the media? You're no longer the head coach.
Yeah.
Let me read that again. It was tough to maintain focus and drive each week? Wow. Do you want another job in this? league, Doug?
Guy's gotten beaten up. That's a tough place to coach, I would imagine. That's a tough owner to work for. And again, another situation where are you really working for Shad Khan or are you working for his kid? Like, who's calling the shots?
Yeah.
Who's really calling the shots? What are you getting into when you work for that owner? What are you getting into if you work for Woody Johnson, Shad Khan, the McCaskies?
Joe Brady, if you're listening, you will have options. You'll have interviews. You might interview with Jacksonville. Not a job you want. No. New Orleans, where at least you can kind of maybe handpick a quarterback at some point. You'll be given more rope there. They'll love you there. They care about the Saints.
Yeah.
I
feel bad. In a way, I feel bad for the Saints. The Saints had an opportunity to do what really good organizations rarely get the opportunity to do, but you see an organization, and we talked to Lee Steinberg last hour about some of these teams that have established themselves really solid organizations because they're consistent. There's continuity and there's alignment within the organization, and you got quarterback figured out, whether you're talking about the Chiefs, whether you're talking about the Steelers. I certainly look at a Green Bay who's had stability at the quarterback position now for a generation, right? And the Saints had that. They had that with Drew Brees, and they didn't have a succession plan. And now the Saints are the Aints again. They're just not a team that's going to, they're middling. And
well, that's why I'm so fascinated what happens in Minnesota. Like, Minnesota could lose to Detroit, and then all of a sudden a 4-5 matchup, they're out real quick. Or it could go completely the other direction. They're in the Super Bowl. But what do you do with McCarthy? Like, if J.J. McCarthy came out this year, Mike Danger, true or false, he'd be the number one.
No question.
So why won't teams say, all right, a kid who, yes, had an injury, why won't they make that move to Minnesota? Here's our number one pick.
I don't think the Vikings do it. I don't think they trade him. I think they hold on to him, and I think they make him sit. Make him sit behind Sam Darnold. I don't think there's anything wrong with that plan. Yes, you invested a first-round pick in him. Fine. Let him sit behind Sam Darnold. That's your quarterback. You saw how the team reacted to him after they beat Green Bay. My God, they love him.
The other thing, too, with Darnold, people saying, well, he's free. What do we look at with the Steelers? He's not going anywhere. He's not going to go anywhere.
He shouldn't. He should stay in Minnesota. Minnesota should pay him. I would pay him slightly more than what Baker Mayfield is making.
Well, I'd have to look up what the tag is. That's where the price tag starts. Okay, we're going to use this tag, and then we're going to tack on a few more years.
I mean, I get it. You have that option if you're the Vikings, but how is that viewed? How is that viewed? I mean, are you doing...
Well, it's just very simple. It's like his market value is going to be greater than that tag. You're better off getting the deal done before whatever the date is in March where free agency opens.
Sure. That's going to be interesting. I think come Monday when we get on the air at 3, what does the world look like when we have another weekend of, Week 18 in the NFL and teams pack it up and pull up stakes? The teams that are on the outside looking in. Who's looking for work? Who surprises us? Do we have surprises on Black Monday?
I'm going to make a prediction, Mike Danger. One coach that was going to stay put. Mike McCarthy in Dallas.
I think so.
For some reason, Jerry doesn't like to make the move. Wade Phillips was way past his shelf life, as was Jason Garrett, as was most of these coaches that ever work for Jerry. So not a good year, but the excuse is there. Your quarterback wasn't there.
I didn't see them quit on their coach. You could look around the league and see teams, they quit. They quit. Mm-hmm. They're quitting on their coach. I didn't see that with McCarthy. And I know it's easy to say, well, he's under contract. His contract is expiring. McCarthy would probably have to say, no, I'm good. This isn't what I signed up for. Walk away before you would see Jerry get rid of him. I think Jerry offers him. Jerry, evaluating, what are you worth? Here's what we believe you're worth. You want to be the coach of the Cowboys? Here's another 3 years. And go from there.
Yeah, and they'll have a good draft pick and more optimism.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The one that we talked about with Fates last week when we went through the list of potential head coaching candidates, if Mike Shanahan becomes available, I mean, every team looking for a head coach should be signing up for for Kyle Shanahan. Did I say Mike?
You said Mike, yeah.
Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan needs to be, if he becomes, I think that would be crazy for the Niners to do that. Fates seems to think that might be a possibility, that it might just be time, or that the message is stale and he needs to go.
Well, if this were the NHL, he'd be gone. Like, as you're talking, and like, if things come, but the idea they developed the quarterback that was Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should earn you a lifetime job in the NFL.
You got to the Super Bowl twice.
Yeah.
And you did it once with Mr. Irrelevant. The other time you did it with Garoppolo. I mean, get me that guy to be my next head coach.
But on the flip side of that argument, Danger, it's just such a weird franchise, meaning, okay, since Shanahan took over, here are the records: 6-10, 4-12. 13-3, 6-10, 10-7, 13-4, 12-5, back to 6-10. Up, down, up, down.
So if history serves, you hold on to them, and next year you have another 10, 12, 13-win season.
But anybody that says, oh, you got to give Gerard Mayo another chance. Now, the one and done, like Chip Kelly was a disaster. And we forget, like, they had 2 one-and-dones back-to-back before Shanahan started there. You remember the guy before Chip Campbell, Charlie?
Oh, it was the sweaty guy,
yes. Jim Thomasula.
Jim Thomasula, yeah.
Guy who farted at the podium.
No, that's yeah. I mean, he and our guy Trent Baalke, they were there at the same time, weren't they?
They were.
What a gassy front office and head coach you had there. Like you get it, some coaches they want the endorsement with the car brand of the local car dealer.
No.
Not the Niners of that era.
No, Taco Bell.
Yeah,
bring
we
it in.
We want burritos and we want antacids. I'm Trent Baalke of the San Francisco 49ers. How do I spell relief? ROLAIDS. I'm Jim Thomasula.
We're not there yet. We still got a couple of days going through. Coach and I haven't sat down and gone through the final board yet. We'll do that on Monday.
This guy was the sweatiest guy I've ever seen on a sideline. You see some of these guys, you watch some of these bowl games, and some of the college coaches are like, oh, boy, they're like not in good health. And then you see how much they're sweating. It's like, whoa. And you had that in the NFL. You don't normally see that. But that Thomasula was that one season where he was just a disaster. And I think Baalke was still the GM there at the time.
He is the head coach of the Rhine Fire, whatever that is.
European football?
Yeah. European League of Football.
Is that still a thing?
That is.
It is?
2022? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, good for him.
How do you go from defensive line?
I mean, think about all the bratwurst he's able to enjoy. Sauerkraut.
Fine European beer.
I am sure that guy is the worst smelling human to ever grace an NFL organization. He has to be. Yeah, it's not bad enough that I'm sweating through all my clothes every single week, every single press conference. Send me to Europe so I can feast on beer and brats. Sauerkraut. Smell even worse. Okay. Well, we'll see what the world looks like. We're back on Monday with a brand new episode coming up at 3. Before we close up shop here in the Sports Bar, we part ways for the weekend. We got to get to a round of shots.
We haven't even talked about what happened last night. I suppose we should address that, Danger, at some point. And
we have to. The S word.
Just when you thought they couldn't get any better, they give you this treat last night. Good bowl action, not only last night, but today. We will get you updated on college football, which NBA player wants out as the NBA trade deadline coming around here. And I'm a little surprised here, Danger. I'm a little skeptical. A Hollywood actress actually breaking cards and liking it? Or is she doing this kind of as a stunt? But this actually happened.
Okay, we're going to get to that and more next. We got a round of shots on the way. And don't forget about Last Call. You can have the final word in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia when you dial us up at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick. Is that a corn? That ain't no corn. What? That's a super corn! Oh, wow!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
Bills signing quarterback Mike White to the active roster. They give him a contract through next season. Good chance we'll see White Sunday in New England. according to head coach Sean McDermott.
Right, that's the plan. He'll be suited up, and hopefully we get a chance to get him in the game. And I'm anxious and excited to look at Mike. He's done a phenomenal job with us, and I'm hoping that comes to fruition on Sunday afternoon there.
To make room, linebacker Nick Morrow was released. Linebacker Terrell Bernard, the only player that's been ruled out for this game. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel, the only player that is listed as questionable. Bills and Patriots, 9 a.m. for our pregame coverage Sunday here on The Fan. Amerks in Springfield tonight. Rochester's won 13 road wins this season as the most of the American Hockey League. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The sports leader, 95.7 FM, and streaming online at thefanrochester.com and the Odyssey app. This is The Fan, Rochester.
Time for a round of shots in the sports bar.
So I'm sitting at home last night, Danger, and the executive producer walks into the room. Me, okay? Hey, Bo Byram just scored. Sabres up 2-0. Executive producer does a perfect Rachel Phelps from the movie Major League. Don't worry. They'll blow it. It would actually go to 3-0 before a 6-5 loss in overtime. So to review, Colorado 1 month ago came here, and they came back from a 4-0 deficit to win, and this time it was 3-0. Colorado winning the 2 points both times. Sabres in Vegas tomorrow night, 10 p.m. The puck drop here on The Fan.
I thought about it, and my daughter, still off from school, she was like, I want to watch a movie. So when the quarterfinal ended, when Notre Dame beat Georgia, I'm like, all right, let's watch something we haven't watched before. And we went with Napoleon Dynamite.
Wait, you never watched Napoleon Dynamite?
I've watched it.
Oh,
She's never watched it.
Oh,
she's never watched it.
Gotcha.
And I don't know. I mean, like, there's different scenes in that movie that still will always crack me up. Uncle Rico cracks me up. Uncle Rico throwing a steak and hitting Napoleon off of his bike. I don't know why it cracks me up. Well, probably because I'm 12. But she's like, I don't get it. This doesn't have any plot. I mean, she laughed. There were moments that made her laugh, but it's a weird movie. It's a funny, weird movie. And then I'm like, we need a palate cleanser. We stayed up late. We had double feature. Usual Suspects was part 2 of the double feature. Kaiser Soze.
I love technology.
Did you is that one that you have to add to the list? You know about Usual Suspects?
I have no idea. No.
You don't know about Usual Suspects?
Mm-mm.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah, I'll watch that after Shawshank.
Shawshank and Usual Suspects, a couple of classics that Gene hasn't watched.
No, we're finishing up maybe tonight. You can add that to your list. Shrinking.
Wait, you're already through Ted Lasso?
Yeah, we blew through Ted Lasso.
Oh my God.
Holiday time now.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we have only a couple months of this free Apple TV.
Shrinking is what?
Oh, that's the one with it's got Harrison Ford and others in it, so it's really good.
Okay, and that's an Apple TV as well?
Yeah, add it to your list.
I will. We added it to the list.
So, where were we? Oh, we were talking about the Sabres and they're bad. The bowl season winding down. The much-anticipated matchup, the Servpro First Responders Bowl in North Texas, Texas State. Your update here, Danger. Now, this is a game that had an over-under entering it at 66.5. If you bet the over, you're in trouble here. Well, maybe not. They're still in the second. 14-9 for those who care. North Texas with the lead. The last game of the college football bowl season that is not a playoff game, that'll be tomorrow. The UB Bulls, the 11 a.m. kickoff in the Bahamas. UB facing Liberty.
What about the Mr. Mayo Bowl?
Oh, that's tonight. Yes. Yeah. We've got Minnesota against Virginia Tech.
What would you rather hear us talk about in the sports bar? Movies that we haven't watched that we need to add to the list, or shows that we haven't watched or need to add to the list, or the Mayo Bowl?
That's a tough call.
It is. It's too close to
listen,
or the Sabres at this point.
I would go list Mayo Bowl.
Sabres last. Yeah, Sabres dead last.
Cheez-It Bowl.
What a sad state of affairs.
It's our programming. Not to take anything away from Notre Dame, but Georgia looked like a team danger. They was playing with a backup quarterback. 23-10 ended up being the final. Key play in this game came in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame's Mike Freeman, the head coach, orchestrated a play. It's 4th and short, deep in their own territory, and they're going to punt. Okay, no big deal. You're at your own 20. The Irish then run off all 11 guys and bring the offense back onto the field, which forces Georgia to substitute on the fly. They didn't call the timeout. Clearly, Georgia not ready. As the hard count gets 2 guys to jump offside, Notre Dame able to burn another 5 minutes off the clock, and that pretty much did it.
You saw a team just impose their will on a team that you thought you couldn't do that to, and that's what Notre Dame did down the stretch.
Well, Georgia also made some like ETN fumbling inside the 20. That wasn't good. There was another play that you and I were watching. Oh, my gosh, that's going to go for a big yardage. 15-yard penalty because one of the players that was not dressed but still had a jersey on was celebrating and got in the way of the linesman. Well, you make contact with an official. That's an automatic 15. Listen, the Irish, 1.5 favorite next Thursday night against Penn State. Ohio State giving up 6 Friday against Texas.
The final is going to be exquisite any way you slice it. I think it's interesting. I think there's a few things that are interesting here. One, my takeaway from Notre Dame this season, selfishly, the Chicago Bears fan in me wants Notre Dame to win it all and wants them to go after Marcus Freeman. Go after him. See if he'll do it. He's young. He's got a quality about him that I think if he were a head coach in the NFL, I know it doesn't always work when you go from college to the pros. I would take that shot. Notre Dame, Chicago, the proximity, the allegiances that Chicago sports fans have to Notre Dame and vice versa. I would love to see them entertain that. Probably won't happen. The other one that's interesting is also in that game. Drew Aller has already said, I'm coming back next year to Penn State. I'm going to play one more year at Penn State. But what if Drew Aller orchestrates a national title for Penn State? Does Drew Aller become a top 5 quarterback in the NFL draft?
It's interesting also when you have players that can change the narrative. You win a championship, the narrative is changed. But I'm not talking a player. I'm talking about a coach. Like, if you talk to most Penn State fans, and some are way into it more than I would ever be, I'm very just surface level here, they're not high on James Franklin. Let's put it that way. But if James Franklin is able to win a championship, all that other stuff doesn't matter at this point.
Right. But going in and the seeding and the way the bracket laid out, Penn State's path looked favorable. Beat SMU, beat Boise State. Well, they've done that. Now it's time. Can you win the big game against Notre Dame? And if you do that, can you dispatch of either Ohio State or Texas? That feels like a little bit too tall a task for James Franklin, given his history with big games. But Aller is interesting to me. I don't know that case is closed. I mean, Penn State better hope that he's a man of his word if they do win a championship, because their backup to Aller went and made millions, with another school.
Well, I'm going to make this argument. Ready, danger, that if Notre Dame ends up winning the national championship, Notre Dame is not the real champion because they lost to NIU.
That's right.
And who beat NIU? The UB Bulls. So the UB Bulls are the real champions of football.
Yes, that's right. And by the way, they should also be considered the champions of the SEC. I mean, by that logic, they are the SEC champions. UB SEC champions. Where's the call? They need to be in that conference. Clearly, they are the best team in the SEC.
What are you doing, SEC?
How does Notre Dame lose that game? How does Notre Dame lose to Northern Illinois? That's their blemish. How does that happen? When they do what they did to a team like Georgia yesterday, how do they lose to Northern Illinois? Man, I should be paying more close attention to Notre Dame football just so I could see that game and say, what the hell happened?
Remember this come next season when we're talking to PJ Glasser or the betting experts, because you looked at the Notre Dame schedule this year was cake.
Yeah.
It really was. The toughest game, you could say, was the one at the beginning where they went to Texas A&M. They took care of business.
Yep.
That looked really good. And then you come back home the following week against an opponent you're paying. You paid Northern Illinois to beat you.
Yes. Makes no sense.
It's such a strange graphic. What do they show up like? 10 straight wins since lost to Northern Illinois. It's like, oof. Yeah.
Can't get past it.
No, you could just say 10 straight wins and like, oh, yeah, that actually happened. Tell me if this sounds familiar, Danger. When Jimmy Butler, Miami Heat, was asked if he can get his joy back on the court with the Miami Heat, Butler responded, probably not.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Butler asking for a trade. According to ESPN, he's willing to go anywhere and won't block a trade at all. Wants out that bad. Thursday, February 6th, the NBA trade deadline. NBA schedule tonight highlighted by the Knicks, winners of 9 in a row, taking on Oklahoma City, who has won 13 in a row.
How many of the Knicks won?
9.
9 times.
Streaking. When you have NBA analysts and NBA talking heads just openly being critical of the product the way we've had so far this season, it makes it really hard for me to want to embrace and get behind watching the NBA this season. Have you heard it more this season than in years past? I feel like there's a louder drumbeat this season about the NBA's product, and it's coming from people that cover the NBA.
I think this is the backlash of resting players and the entitlement of, like, the Brooklyn Nets from a couple of years ago. Like, people are just kind of starting to tune out. When you start the season with Joel Embiid, a player we just watched in the Olympics, but they need to rest him. Okay, then why should I invest my time if you're not going to do that?
You know the team that doesn't do any of this? The team that we were just talking about.
Oklahoma City.
No, the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks are like could be the savior of the NBA. Like, if the Knicks go on a run, if the Knicks and the Celtics meet in the Eastern Conference Finals, that would be fantastic for the game, because I think you have a team in the Knicks. Their coach is like the antithesis of that. Like, no, I'm going to grind you guys to a pulp.
Well, this is always debatable, right? But if, NFL king, right? The NFL has lapped the field in terms of popularity. What's number 2 right now?
It's debatable.
It used to be the NBA, you could say. But then when it comes to revenue, Major League Baseball is actually ahead of the NBA because they have different revenue streams. But I got to say, Danger, college football, even though these playoffs haven't been everything we were hoping for. Yeah.
It's a great product.
The fact that we're watching North Texas State here on a Friday afternoon, I'm still into it. Finally, who says collecting isn't cool? Actress Emma Roberts, who is the niece of Julia, probably best known for her work in American Horror Story, did a video of her own card breaking, and she pulled the 1-of-1 of Jackson Holliday, his rookie card. The Baltimore Orioles were so impressed they reposted Roberts and her pull. Now, if only Jackson Holliday ends up being a bust, everything's going to be okay.
Right. Let's watch the rise and fall of Jackson Holliday, because that card could have significant value depending on how big of a star he's going to be.
Sell it right now.
Yeah, because it's never going to get
now.
Yeah. We got to get our guys from We the Hobby talk about that. We the Hobby out there breaking stuff all the time too. There was a video that was one of our regulars shared with us. We the Hobby, pulling it. I need to get more involved and learn more about what it is that they're doing. They've done it in here a couple of times, and it's so fascinating to me because if you're a sports fan, it's hard not to get excited about what they're doing.
It's funny, like when we broke and I picked the Giants, I pulled Malik
Neighbors
rookie. I'm like, oh, yes. How much is this worth? Yeah, a couple bucks. It's not one of the mark ones. That's the excitement when you get the 1-of-1s.
That's right. All right, we're going to take a quick break here.
All right. Yes. All right.
We're kind of up against it. We're in this weird gray zone. Do we take a break or do we sign off for the weekend? It's a weird couple of days here as we come back from the holiday, and we've got a meaningless game with the Bills coming up on Sunday. Let's
You're gonna call it?
Let's wrap it up.
You're calling it.
We're wrapping it up. It was a fun afternoon. It was a fun couple of days here. Next week, it feels like everything gets back, right? Everybody gets back to work. The holidays are officially over.
Oh, the countdown is on.
You can mock people who are still wishing you Happy New Year come Monday. No, we're not in Happy New Year season anymore. What's the deadline?
I think beyond Monday. I think Monday is the
last one?
Monday's the last
one. All
one.
Because there's some stragglers.
Some people haven't worked.
Sure, some stragglers that you haven't seen yet in the new year. That makes sense. What does the world look like on Monday when we're back at 3? We'll have, I'm sure, some head coaching vacancies to report on in the NFL, and we'll also know who the Buffalo Bills will be facing in the Super Wildcard Weekend, when they'll be playing. We'll have all of that ready to go on Monday as well, so no shortage of items to talk about when we return to the sports bar here on the Fan Rochester come Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Gina, we got to give a big thanks to our guests this afternoon in the Sports Bar. If you missed our conversation with Agent Lee Steinberg or Josh Reed from WIVB TV in Buffalo, you can get either of those conversations right now wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar, and that includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all your favorite platforms. You can also find the Sports Bar in our home, the free-to-download Odyssey app, where we're always sounding our best. You can go back and watch the show. We'll have it up for you on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, and we stream live every afternoon on Twitch as well. Nate Geary from the Buffalo Bills Radio Network will be stopping by Monday afternoon. We'll get his reaction to the Bills' Week 18 matchup against the New England Patriots. That, of course, is coming up here Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock kickoff. Our pregame coverage gets underway at 9. Your first-place Rochester Americans take the ice tonight.
Love that.
We'll have that action for you coming up here at 7 o'clock. JR Sport Brief. Before that, have a great night. Talk to you Monday. Thanks for listening. The Fan Rochester.